Crazy Stupid Podcast.
Thank you all so much for tuning in. If this is your first time watching, we'd love it if you could hit that subscribe button, the like button, and the bell so that you are aware of when we post things.
Hello, everybody. I don't know why you said it like
I'm leaving that in.
Hello, everyone. And welcome to another episode of Crazy Stupid Podcast. We have some episodes of JJK to discuss because it's been 2 weeks. Probably talking about some other stuff. I don't know.
Guess we're going 2 episodes. Damn, back-to-back character losses, bro.
Well, the good thing is, I don't think that there's anybody else for them to kill that could like really hurt. I think they've kind of done it all. Jesus. I don't think they're going to kill Megami.
Nah.
So
he's not anytime soon. I feel like there's still more that we need to learn about him.
So at this point, it's like, well, you've taken everyone else that we care about, and there's nobody else left to lose. Yeah. I mean, I guess, there's Panda and there's the sushi guy. Where are the kids from the other school?
Okay, I've been thinking about that.
I just feel like they should be here.
Because remember in JJK 0, when Geto waged war on that entire area, they called in everybody.
Right.
Where they at? Maybe that'll probably get explained at some point, but I'm just like, bro, what the hell?
Yeah.
Because Maki's sister, part of the Zenin clan, why you ain't pull up with the rest of your clan, bro? Your leader's there, your sister's there, where you at? Weird energy, bro. I don't know.
They didn't split up, did they? Like, when they first went to Tokyo, I'm trying to remember if there was like something that they explained before they started diving into Shibuya. When they first all went to Tokyo on Halloween night, did they say?
I don't remember, but I don't remember seeing anyone after the Mekamaru incident from Kyoto. So I don't know. I did see, this kind of leads to something I saw online that became noticeable even in this episode. So I had to like really think back. Kugisaki, Nabara, like, she's actually gotten like, in terms of a female character that's like third tier in terms of like main protagonists, she's gotten some pretty good like screen time. She's had like a couple of fight scenes, obviously the banter with like her, Yuji, and Megami, like season 1. She has the big fight scene when they fight Choso's brothers. So at first I was like, all right, but why does it feel like, why something felt weird? And I do feel like, as much as I love JJK, they do move kind of fast.
Yeah.
And I feel like this episode reminded me of like this is where I feel like the writing is like flawless. When you slow down a bit and have more like character studies. Mm-hmm. I think the show does a phenomenal job in like, you learn a lot about people, their personalities in fight scenes, and how their curse ability and what they're dealing with internally are sort of intertwined with each other. And there's like a revelation about who they are based off of the powers that they have and the history that's sort of behind everything there.
Yeah.
I don't always think it lands as strongly when in comparison to like just like relationship sort of storytelling. Prior to the hidden inventory arc with Gojo and Geto, like, that's the thing that really sold me as like, oh, this is phenomenal writing. Mm-hmm. Season 1 was great. I really, really enjoyed season 1. But it's been season 2 so far where I'm like, oh, they took this to like the next level. And I think it's because like there's been more time outside of Yuji. And obviously there's some moments with Megami where they've been able to slow down a bit. We could have gotten more of Nabara. Like, just to bring back what we were mentioning earlier, a lot of the characters in Kyoto, maybe they're not supposed to be that important, but during the exchange event, mm-hmm. when they were, going back and forth, we were getting flashbacks. Like with Mekamaru, we learned more about him. We learned more about Maki's sister. We were learning things about all of them. And then so far, obviously with Todo, we've gotten things, but like, I feel like there could be room for more. I mean, obviously my list is kind of small, but I still put Full Metal at the top because by the end of that series, I have fallen in love with every single character on that show. They're all fleshed out. You understood everyone perfectly. And I feel like when JJK does that, it slows down just a little bit. That's where I feel like it's like an untouchable anime right now.
Yeah.
But there's moments where I'm just like, whoa, give me a Give me a second.
The reason why I feel like that hasn't bothered me so far is because I get the feeling that we're still
Like you're still learning things.
like we're not at the meat of things, and I don't think we've landed on who the show is actually going to center on yet. That's how it's felt to me, especially since the Shibuya arc started. I think everything that's happened so far is just to set the groundwork for what's about to come and where the meat of the show or manga, whatever, is going to take place. Everything before this was kind of like, okay, like you're kind of getting a feel, you're kind of seeing what's going on a little bit, but like it feels like there's like this big story arc that we haven't gotten to quite yet, and everything up until now is kind of like just prepping us for that.
Yeah, like the lore of like Marley and Paradise Island. That's the big reveal. That's everything was like leading up to. Like there might be a moment like that.
Yeah.
With this one here. Yeah, I can see that. I do hope so. Because I felt sad with this episode because I was like, Nobara was actually I really liked her character. I love the banter that she had with the other two. And I'm glad that she got like her standalone episode. And, you know, she had some fights earlier. Obviously, you know, the one with Haruto and Nanami earlier on in the Shibuya arc. But it ain't like we got that many female characters in the show already. So, like, losing her was like, I don't know. That was kind of tough for me.
It was sad for me, too. I have to say, prior to this episode, I did not really have any attachment to her whatsoever, to be honest. Mostly because what you said, which was that we just didn't really spend that much time with her. But, during this episode, they sold me.
I felt it.
Yeah, and I was really sad.
I was
really sad when she died.
A big part of Nobara's story arc is like a need for community for the most part. Like even if she doesn't outwardly always say it, she admits it in this episode as to how much those people like really meant to her, and that feels like something that's sort of reoccurring with JJK. I think one of the things that I really like about this show is how they portray how community is like a necessity for any human that like wants to function properly, like in the world. Watching this episode, it reminded me of in JJK 0 when Maki's talking to Yuta and she's like trying to teach him about curses, and she says something along the lines of like, the more curses are together, like the weaker they are. And she was like, the same thing could be said about humans. Now, obviously, that's probably her just perspective on life, but I think the show gave us that line to show us how she's wrong in the way that she views humans. This idea of like, the more we come together, like that must mean that we're weaker because we can't handle things on our own as an individual. But everything that we've seen so far in the show really points to the author telling us, no, there's actually strength in community. No one ever like corrects Maki with like, hey, you're wrong with the way that you view the world. The writing just tells us that.
I also feel like the reason why they're in this situation in the first place is because they were too reliant on one person.
Gojo.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like they were so reliant on one individual person, and that put them in this situation in the first place.
Right. And there's a loneliness to that. Mm-hmm. So remember when Yuji was like, he called Nanami sensei. Nanami was like, you don't have to call me that because like I'm not technically your teacher. So then he says, oh, I'll call you Nanamin. Like he adds the IN at the end. I'm only basing this off of what I've read. So this is what the article says here. Since Nanami is his superior, the proper way for Itadori to address him would be Nanami-san, as most of the other characters do. The formal honor fight probably seems too serious to Yuji given his playful personality, but he still need to accord to superior due to respect, obviously. So Nanamin takes care of both issues. In Japanese culture, children are allowed to make play with adult names, but only those they share a close relationship with. So Yuji shortens Nanami-san to Nanamin as a way to show respect to the grade 1 sorcerer while still indicating his fondness for him. Now, obviously, Nanami tells Yuji, like, I'll slap you if you call me that. But after that point, he actually never corrects him. I think Gojo was like a big important role for Yuji, but Nanami was like, to me, he's like the Ned Stark to like Jon Snow. When we were getting like flashbacks of Nanamin, there's a scene, I think in season 1, where he's like, no one would miss me if I was gone. Right? It's like his will, like to live, to survive. He found more purpose coming back to working at the school because of Yuji.
That's something that a person who speaks Japanese obviously like would pick up on.
Yeah.
And that actually adds a lot of context because, I mean, you can see in their interactions, obviously, that he cares about him, but also like we don't see them together that much.
Right.
So they are establishing a lot with like just a little bit, like just a little touch.
And he's not like the most emotionally available person.
Yeah.
You know, like if he's verbally, he doesn't always say it. Last thing, I remember a while back we talked about like the tenderness in the relationship with Gojo and Geto and like just the critique of like masculinity, but how there were a lot of queer people that saw Gojo and Geto and picked up on signs that there might be something romantic. In the comment section, people would respond to those comments and like, that's not the case, yada, yada. And it like, obviously the whole thing of like, make your own stories, the whole like thing that sort of comes up there. And I think it sort of reminded me of one, obviously it's a very disingenuous argument, but I feel like there's a couple of things that if you are being genuine, which I don't think most are, I do think there are a couple of things that we should probably consider. The first is minority groups make their stories all the time, right? That's not, we've seen it. We saw how successful those things were with Black Panther, with Across the Spider-Verse, even with other TV shows like Sex Education. Like I say, the first issue that I would say is that whether they are new stories for minority groups or not, it's hard for you to break through the era that we're in right now with what Hollywood is putting out. Like it's hard for anything to be successful or to give them a chance to gain popularity because we're in the era of like, it has to be familiar. It has to be a successful IP. If it's not Marvel, DC, Star Wars, it's probably got like a low chance of like ever really getting a chance to like survive. We're getting a bunch of reboots and remakes and spinoffs. So if you aren't in that realm, the possibility of you ever getting anything out there is slim to none. That's the first thing. The second thing is there's also this notion that like progressive people are okay with like tokenizing, but like we hate it too. Like we can tell when Hollywood is putting something out there where they're just trying to like just throw a bone to us, hoping that we'll just sort of accept it. And like the substance is like horrible. Right, I brought up Sex Education as a good example of that because Otis's friend, his best friend, I think had one of the best well-written stories about like a queer person and the different nuanced experiences that can come out of that, right? Like that is an example of when it's not being tokenized and it is received well by most people. So that's the second thing. We know that and we don't like that either. I want to make that clear. But the third thing is, I think in most instances, I think if we take a step back and look at it from what queer people are often given, can tell us why they may probably look to other places and find romantic relationships that we might not have picked up on. Like a lot of times they're just kind of given like the queer baiting in a lot of those instances. Like I thought of with Sam and Bucky in Falcon Winter Soldier, they're rolling around in the grass and then like Sam lands on top of him. Everyone knows what that's sort of like winking to. Like it's done in like a playful way, but obviously they're trying to like imply some sort of humorous elephant in the room sort of situation there. Or obviously you get situations like Gojo and Geto, where Gojo will say things like, he's my one and only. Now, like normally people typically say that to someone that there's like romantically involved with to a degree. Now, obviously we don't know because it's not explicitly stated in either way. Or you get instances like Aneko and Ayo in Black Panther 2, where they're in a relationship. They're two of the Dora Milaje people, and it's just like a quick little, and that's it. You know what I'm saying? So, and I know that there's been talks of they might have like a TV show coming out, and maybe we'll get more of that. But the fact that like you don't get anything more out of those few examples that I gave is why when queer people pick up on those things, I don't ever say anything because I don't lose anything from that. I'm already represented in the relationships that I want to relate to so much, like 10 times over. And so I feel like those reasons always get lost when those conversations sort of come up. So.
It's also that a lot of the times the things that they're like, people are not just making things up. It's just that because most of us think about things in such a heteronormative way,
right?
We are just never going to, we are almost always going to assume the relationship between two men or two women is platonic. Mm-hmm. But sometimes things will happen that if these two people were of two different genders,
we would all pick up on it.
It would be like an automatic cue because there's like certain tropes and cues that TV shows and movies give us to let us know, like, oh, those two people, they got something going on, like without saying it.
Yeah.
That like we all automatically pick up on when it's a man and a woman. But when it's a man and a man or a woman and a woman, we don't, like, we are not thinking about it like that because we just assume straightness. Right.
You know, it's a great example of that, Legend of Korra. When her queerness sort of came up. I remember when I first watched it. Now, this was the old me and the way that I viewed the world and a lot of opinions. And I was like, oh, that came out of nowhere.
It didn't.
And when I rewatched it again a couple of years ago, I was like, oh, they've been hinting at this shit since that first episode about where her queerness is. I remember talking to you about
that and being like, it didn't come out of nowhere. No. They were definitely telling us very early on. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like that's probably a perfect example of it, right?
But like it's easy to watch, especially I think when it's two girls, because I think we are like more used to affectionate behavior between two women than between two men. Yeah. So especially when it's two girls, it's easy for people to watch and just be like, they're just really close friends. Mm-hmm. But it's like, no.
And also, even we talked a little about this with Gwen in Across the Spider-Verse, where I was like, I mean, I don't know if she's trans. She might be, but like, I don't lose any sleep over it. But you had a lot of queer people like, no, she is. And here are all of the reasons why. I would have never picked up on all of those things. And when they explain it to me, like when you hear from someone that is articulate in the way that they sort of break down film, I'm like, oh, shit. Yeah, that's valid.
There it is. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah. Just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
As you know, I recently saw the new Hunger Games movie.
Yes.
Very good movie. I had a wonderful time. And then I was like, you know what? After I see this movie, I need to go back and rewatch all the Hunger Games. And so I did that in about one day, maybe two. I watched all 4 of them in a weekend. Looking back on the media that we were being fed in like the mid 2000s, it is truly mind-boggling why any person would be surprised at the politics of millennials and Gen Z people. Because what project can you think of in that time that was not about a group of kids standing up to a system of power? There were so many films and so many novels coming out in that time. We had Hunger Games, we had Divergent, we had Maze Runner. Okay, all 3 of those came out like within like the same, like within, I want to say like a few years of each other. Like even Harry Potter, right? Like so many projects were just about like a bunch of kids being like, what you people in power are doing is wrong, and we're not going to let you get away with it. And then they succeed. But I have to say, after rewatching, I think that Hunger Games is among some of the best depictions of revolution that we probably ever had on screen. There's only 3 that I could think of that like do a really good job: Hunger Games, Andor, and How to Blow Up a Pipeline. And those 3 things, like, I think they all nail it. Hunger Games, I feel like, stands out because it's aimed towards kids and it does such a good job. I mean, like, rewatching it, especially in the context now of all these conversations that we're having about Palestine and Israel, like, it's literally so relevant. It's literally so relevant. I mean, the entire premise of the games is we fear that these people in the districts are going to stand up against us and hurt us. We have ostracized them and demonized them in the eyes of people, so people believe that they are dangerous. And because of that, we can justify killing their children.
Woo!
That's the premise. That is the premise of the games.
Woo!
That's it.
Woo! Hold on.
The messaging, because this movie is interesting because it's from the perspective of people in the Capitol. So you're following the Snow, who's eventually going to become president of the Capitol, right? But it's from the perspective of people in the Capitol. And so you're seeing the way that they and their kids, their high schoolers, like equivalent, I guess. Yeah. So you're seeing the way that they talk about people in the districts and the way that they think about them and the way that they can justify something this horrific. So you kind of get a firsthand view of what the propaganda is, and that's literally it. They're saying these districts, they revolted against us in the past. We had this terrible war, and you guys, you know, you lost people, you were hurt, you lost your loved ones, it was scary, it was violent, you lost, you know, your livelihood, like lots of these terrible things happened. In order to prevent that from happening again, we have to keep them in a position of permanent oppression. And the way that we do that is we show them that we can kill their kids. That's literally it. That's why they do the games. And I'm like, if that does not sound exactly like the propaganda we're seeing coming out of Israel right now, it does. And it sounds like the propaganda that we see from so many of these oppressive systems, which is like, if we don't do this, we are in danger. Yeah. We will be hurt. We will be harmed. So there's that. Like, I think it does a phenomenal job. But then watching the movies back, it is so well done. Number one, when you're watching the movies, especially the first one, you are watching and you're like, okay, the people in like District 1, District 2, those people you watching feel like they are the bad guys, right? Because like their careers, like, so they have a bit more privilege. They're raised, you know, they're trained up to go to the games. They have more resources, more money, etc. But as you're watching the series continue, and then especially when you watch it from the position of the people in the Capitol with this prequel, you realize that the District 1 and 2 are also victims of this exact same system. They're actually not. It's a perfect depiction of the way that institutions and oppressive systems will create conflict between oppressed people to prevent them from banding together. Yeah. Because you're watching and you feel like District 1 and 2 are the problem because they are like they have more access and privilege, but they are still being harmed by the system. They're still having to send their children to get killed in the games, regardless of the resources that they have. But District 1 and 2 are being told that they're better than the other districts. And so they're banding together too, because they feel like they're better than the other people. If that's not exactly what's happening to poor white people in America, I mean, like, there's things about this series, obviously, that frustrate me, especially the film adaptation, because I think like some of the casting was inaccurate.
Like, was it what's the girl's name? Rue, I think, or even Katniss, I think, was supposed to be. It's like you could read it as someone that could be a person of color.
Listen to this, please. Listen to this. In the books, she's described as an olive skin toned girl.
Yeah, I remember.
No, please. She's an olive skin toned girl who wears her hair in a long braid and hunts with a bow and arrow.
If that's not an indigenous person, I don't really know what other way you could describe it.
Are you like, don't like, please stop. That's just so, I'm sorry. That is just so, okay. But anyways, like, obviously, like that still bothers me. And I still think that the film adaptation could have hit even more.
Yes.
If they had centered it around people of color. However, even given that, it is so good. And when you watch the last few movies, I think one thing that a lot of stories about, like, people standing up to oppressive systems or standing up to bad guys, that they try to do, especially for kids in kids films, is they kind of try to clean it up. And they try to make Revolution look a little bit less messy.
Yeah.
And they try to make it look like, like there's a clear black and white. Like these are the good guys. And the good guys, they're going to play by the rules and they're not going to do anything bad. I mean, like so many superheroes are like, I don't kill people, right? Like this is like a thing. And it's fine. I understand why we do it. I understand like it's messy and like especially like for things that you're trying to tailor towards really young kids, like those kinds of conversations are hard to have because like you want to lay the groundwork first of like violence is not good right. Before you start to like, I get that. But they do such a good job in those last films of showing how like the people who we're rooting for, who we want to win out in the end, have to do things that are not necessarily like quote unquote ethical, that are not always like playing by the rules. And even as the characters in the movie are voicing that they don't like what's happening, in the end, it's still how they win.
Wait, what are some examples? So
the last thing that happens in the film before like the conflict is over in the last movie is Katniss is on her way to go and kill President Snow.
Yeah. And
President Snow has called all the Capitol people and told them like, come to like evacuate the city and like come to like the grounds where I'm at. Like, I'll keep you safe. And so she's like in the crowd trying to get to him. And as she's trying to get to him, all these drones, the drones that they would use in the games to send supplies, all these drones come down and the people are like, oh, he's sending us something. And then the drones blow up. And so children die, civilians die, innocent people die. And you think, dang, the Capitol like killed their own people. Like, why would they do that?
Oh, and it wasn't.
It was the resistance movement that sent those. And I mean, it doesn't feel good, right? Like it doesn't feel good and it doesn't feel like the right thing. Mm-hmm. But it is what wins. It is what ends up allowing the conflict to end. Is because the people in the Capitol,
they think that it's snow.
And they're like, they are then like, what am I fighting for, basically? And so it allows the resistance fighters to march right on through and take Snow and deal with it, basically. They don't kill him right away, but like it just kind of shows. And there's other examples too of like when they go to District 1 and District 2 to try to reason with the people there, which is really when it hits home that like these people are not meant to be your enemies, but they're so deeply entrenched in the propaganda that they do not agree. And so there's violence that happens and people are killed, and it's kind of like sad because it's like these people are actually not the enemy, but like this is kind of what happened. When people are in situations where they don't have lots of options, and when people are fighting for their freedom, some things are not going to feel good. And like it's just a fact. And it's not to say it's the right thing to do or the wrong thing to do. It's not. That's just not the conversation. It's just like
giving them wrong choices.
It just like is.
Yeah.
And they just did such a good job. And then even after that, at the end, it shows like the cyclical nature of like power, because the new person in charge tries to restart the games. Yeah. And our girl Katniss Everdeen takes care of that.
Nah, I ain't with that.
I mean, I just, watching it as an adult, I was just like honestly floored. I was like, I honestly cannot believe that we had something like this. Like as kids, like reading this, I like.
And all these boomers are like surprised.
So radical.
Why are all these millennials and Gen Z all left leaning?
It's honestly so radical.
Everything
like,
we consume.
It's like, yo, it's.
That's good stuff. Well, you brought up Andor, and I think that's why, as much as I love the originals and the prequels for Star Wars, I do feel like some of the things that we've gotten later on in Star Wars have depicted what the Empire is and what true resistance looks like a lot better and more accurately and more honest. Like with Andor as a character, we're first introduced to him in Rogue One. The first thing that we see is that he ends up shooting like one of his like informants because things sort of go south, right? other things that are sort of shown up in the film so far really lead us to like, this is like messy stuff.
Yeah.
I know like people have mixed feelings about The Last Jedi, but when they were trying to find, I don't remember what the character's name is, but there's a part in the film that I do appreciate where it shows that even in the Resistance, like they're working with like arms dealers or people that are like selling weapons that are, or working with people that are profiting off of this war because like they need necessary tools to fight back.
Yeah.
And I think I do appreciate the sort of tone that the original film had about the Resistance, but I do think there are a lot of people who weren't progressive enough that watched those movies and are thrown off by what real marginalized people end up having to do to fight for their freedom. And they're like, this isn't how it's supposed to be.
It's like, this is how it always is.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I get that like there are certain moments where like you have to soften it to help it clearly show the lines of like, these are the good people and these are the bad people. But I think what I appreciated what Andor did is that they spent time humanizing Andor and his community in Ferrix. We spent several episodes there. We spent the first 2 or 3 episodes showing Andor with where he originally came from, with his family, where he was sort of taken from. And once you see that, and you see the effects that the Empire essentially, like the impact that it has on Ferrix, all of the other things of like, you know, we get the famous speech in the hallway where he essentially alludes to like, I have to do some very shady things for a future that I'm probably never going to have. Mm-hmm. All of that, again, like you don't ever walk away feeling like, oh, this, like you said, it feels good, but I never have to question who is right and who's wrong.
The key thing that you really need to do this messaging well is you need to land the fact that like what determines who is on the right side of history is not always the means. Now, sometimes it is. There are some things that are just bad, don't do. Attack on Titan. But what really determines it is the cause that they are fighting for.
Right.
Because sometimes the means will look very similar between the two groups of people, and the actions that they're taking will look very similar. But the cause that they are fighting for and what their end game is what defines for you.
Yeah.
Like who is in the right here and who is in the wrong, even when things get sort of shifty and shady.
Yeah.
One other thing that Andor and How to Build a Pipeline and Hunger Games also do very well is depict how meticulously planned revolutions are. Because I think that sometimes our telling of history gives it gives the idea that these things are spontaneous, just like an outflow of emotion, and then things just work out.
Like MLK?
Yeah, like MLK, or like she just got tired on the bus. Like, it's like, no. These things are very meticulously planned. Like, particularly in Hunger Games, they show how like truly in those last 2 movies, Katniss is not doing a lot of fighting. What's happening a lot of the times is like things being staged so that she can go out and they can make like films and videos to combat the propaganda from the Capitol, right? To be like she becomes like a very symbolic figure who's not doing most of the work, like in actuality. And there's tension with that, and you know how her as a person feels about that. But it is like a useful tactic. They're strategically giving people a person and a figure to root for and to stand behind. And like all of it is like very planned. Even in the second movie, when all of the other people in the other districts decide to protect them and to make sure that she survives, even at the cost of their own lives, like they rig the games. Like they rig the games to make sure that she can live, to make sure that she, this is just all Like, none of this just happens. It's the same thing in Andor. We spend all those episodes watching them prepare to rob this bank or whatever it was, and then watching them prepare to get out of this, to get out of the prison. And you didn't watch How to Blow Up a Pipeline yet. Watch it soon.
I know.
But like, it's the same thing. Every single thing is like, it doesn't just happen out of nowhere.
Well, this is why I appreciated what Ava DuVernay did with Selma.
Yeah.
Because that was super helpful to give the detail of all of these meetings that they had about, we had to do it on this day. We had to make sure the news shows the impact of officers like attacking Black civilians, which is intentional. Like, again, not going to feel good, but the leaders of that movement knew what emotions it would evoke, even if there would be some harm done to Black folk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You have to show it, because otherwise, like, I mean, like, we still see it now, even now that we're starting to get more of this context. Even now, I think we still sort of struggle to understand, like, organizing and, like, what that work actually means to be, like, impactful. Because, you know, like, there's a lot of, like, you know, little, like, on this day we're striking on this, you know, like,
What was that? We're striking from work.
the rent thing that happened a couple months back. Like,
Pay your rent.
it's
y'all.
like,
Come on.
no, like, these things have to, like, people sit down in meetings and they plan it out.
Yeah.
Like, they sit down and they plan it out ahead of time in advance, and they think through what the impact is going to be and how they're going to respond and what they're going to leverage and how they're going to leverage it. Like, it's all very intentional. And also, I feel like just adds so much context to heroes in history who got things like this done.
Yes.
Like, some of my favorite stories in history are stories about Supreme Court cases where the proof cases were staged events. So, like, where they in order to get the case to court, they planned to do something that would break the law that was put in place that they were trying to challenge, so that they could take it up to court. Like, I mean, obviously, we just saw that happen, like, with the affirmative action. But I want you to know, conservatives didn't come up with that. Like, the NAACP has been doing that for decades. Putting like purposely breaking segregation laws so that they could challenge segregation in the Supreme Court. Like, it doesn't just happen. It doesn't just happen.
Yeah. There's just been a lot of talk about the state of the MCU right now, you know, particularly everything like after Endgame, right? So the question I want to pose, I guess, to you and to our listeners, we're going to do phase 4 and obviously some of phase 5 that we're in right now. So first question, was phase 4 really that bad? So I'm going to go through a list of the films, and then we'll go through this felt, we were disappointed, it was fun, and it was a hit. Those are our 3 choices there. All right. So first one, Black Widow.
It was fun.
I thought it was fun. I was not disappointed. No. I was only disappointed in the fact that it should have came earlier. I think things would have hit harder if it came between Winter Soldier and Civil War.
Yeah, I agree. But yeah, I wasn't disappointed. I mean, I wasn't expecting anything groundbreaking.
Nah.
But it was fun. I had a good time.
Yeah. All right. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
It was phenomenal. It was very
fucking
good.
Banger. I love that joint. I don't know how people feel about it, but when kung fu or rap music, when you put those two things together, it don't ever really miss for me, to be quite honest. It's always going to be a banger. All right. Next one, Eternals.
Okay. To be honest, I was disappointed. But the reason why I was disappointed is because they presented it to me like it was going to be like some sweeping, like Oscar worthy, like out of this world, like nothing, no Marvel movie we've ever seen type thing. So I was disappointed on my first watch. When I watched it again, I was like, this is it's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I still love it. I know it has its flaws, but it's still one of my like imperfectly perfect films that I would just always love. I do agree with that. There are moments where I'm like, if they could have just removed their Marvel hands and just let the director Chloe Zhao do what she wanted, maybe we could have gotten something a little bit different. Yeah. Because the tones felt a little bit off sometimes. But all right, I guess we'll put it in fun.
Yeah.
Fun category. All right. I mean, come on. Spider-Man No Way Home.
You already know.
All right. We'll just move on to the next one. It's a given. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. I'm putting fun because you can't go wrong with Wanda. Boy, she popped off, bro. I'm sorry. She popped off, bro.
I was disappointed.
Disappointed? Okay, why were you disappointed? What were you expecting and where did it fail?
I feel like he was teetering between two things. That I think he wanted to go full on like dark, scary, but I guess he was limited and could not do that, I'm assuming. And so to me, it came off as kind of kooky.
Okay.
At several points. I was like.
But honestly, that kookiness is in Sam Raimi's style. Like, there's some kookiness in the Spider-Man films. Like, he does the dance when he walks out of the dresser store.
It's bad. I don't know what else to say.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah, it's a style, that those who love it. Those that don't. That's just kind of what it is.
Yeah.
But I get it. I'll put it in fun. I was a little disappointed, but I think we're probably going to get what we thought we were going to get in Multiverse of Madness. We're going to get in Deadpool, like a full-on multiversal pandemonium happening left and right. Versus with that one, it was just like, oh, people in different universes, and they all just kind of died.
Wait, that's what we're getting in Deadpool?
I think so.
Why do you think that?
I'm not saying any spoilers on there. We can probably talk about it off the air, but I think that's what we'll get in that one. Because remember, Hugh Jackman's showing up.
I know, but I thought it was just him.
We'll see.
Okay.
We'll see. All right. Thor: Love and Thunder is a disappointment.
Here's the thing. Did I have fun? Yes. Not because it was just so bad that I just had to laugh. I mean,
fun in like a Fast and Furious kind of way.
Yeah, I mean, I watched it twice. I watched it with you guys, and then I watched it with my family.
What did they think?
They thought it was crazy. And it's just so insane.
You know why I was disappointed? Because Taika Waititi, he did Ragnarok, and then we got Jojo Rabbit, where I'm like, okay, this dude knows how to make hits. And then they bring in Christian Bale. And if you know me, Dark Knight is my favorite movie of all time. So bringing in an actor like that as successful, probably you could argue the most successful Marvel actor that they brought in during that phase. I'm stand by that, personally, in terms of accolades and what he's accomplished in his career.
Probably, I think.
And then they brought in Russell fucking Crowe to be Zeus. So I'm like, oh, this is going to be a banger, right? Because they're bringing in like real actors that know how to like steal a scene.
The goofiness was just over the top. It was just so over. And
they cut a lot of both of their scenes out.
I really want to understand like Taika Waititi, like kind of what happened, because I feel like he had like the formula, and then he was like, "Let's just ratchet it up." And
I'm like, put the Nost all the way up.
Why did we do that? It was such a strange choice. The screaming donkeys.
Okay, that was actually kind of funny.
I laughed. Because it was so absurd. Yeah. It was so, not because it was like, what a great joke. Mm-hmm. It was just like, what is going on?
It was frustrating. Do you
want to say one thing I remember when we watched it? After we watched it with Jordan and Imani. I do remember immediately hearing Imani say, was that even a good movie? I don't know. Like immediately she was like, was that good?
It's like you couldn't even process the absurdity at the moment. All right, last one. Wakanda Forever. Banger. I loved it.
You already know.
Namor, loved the character. Shuri, oh my God. The music in that one, I don't know if it topped the first one, but it's up there, bruh. Because the scene when she drops down and they see her with the suit.
I feel like Letitia Wright is not getting enough credit for the swag that she brought to that role.
Yeah.
I just feel, and I feel like part of it is because we're still mourning Chadwick and like somebody else filling that role. But I feel like after we saw Black Panther and we saw Chadwick in that role, like he was getting so much attention and accolades for how he brought that character to life and to the screen. And I feel like Letitia deserves some of that.
Yeah.
Because to me, I thought she was extremely charming. And I thought she did a phenomenal job showing the sadness and the turmoil. I mean,
it's hard
I
because
feel like we should have been hearing from her since then in at least a bit of the same way that we were hearing from Chadwick. Like he was on all the talk shows and he was everywhere.
It's the COVID stuff. That's probably what it was. Now, I don't want to get into that. There's a lot of opinions around the vaccine.
Her stance.
Yeah, from a racial perspective, there's even more nuance in terms of feelings about medicine. I don't want to get into that right now. Obviously, we are pro-vaccine couples. I'm going to make that clear. But I'm just letting you know, people probably pulled back probably because of that. My opinion.
Feel like
it's just kind of
people
sad.
in Hollywood have gotten away with much worse.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so we're going to jump over to TV shows.
Okay.
All right. So was Phase 4 as bad as we thought it was? We're going TV shows now. Okay. So first up, WandaVision. Banger. I don't care what anybody says. I know they did the whole Ralph Boner. I don't care. You all know.
I forgot.
We were locked in every single week, and that was when I started to see a lot of those like YouTubers really start to blow up because the fan theories and the Easter eggs were everywhere in those episodes. We were eating that stuff up, bro.
Also, it was actually unique. Like I think probably the first and maybe only truly unique Marvel project we've ever gotten.
Outside of Black Panther, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, that's fair.
But I would argue this is probably a little bit more unique, though.
Yes.
Not in terms of cultural style, but in terms of like the stylistic approach of their storytelling.
And the concept. Like it was like for the first several episodes, we were like, "What's going on? Who knows? I'm just here to tune into the next style of sitcom that they do." Like
when she rolled the credits on us, I was like, "Wait. Is my iPad lagging right now?"
Nuts. It was nuts.
Crazy. Absolutely bonkers.
Oh, man. And
it was Agatha all along. What? Banger. Come on now.
I think that's another thing that made me feel a little bit disappointed in Multiverse of Madness is because I feel like the complexity that they gave Wanda
was
in
oversimplified.
This show was very oversimplified in the film. And that was disappointing to me.
I agree.
I think that was probably one of the biggest things I didn't like.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the difference. What was her name? I think it's Jack Schaefer. I think that's the difference when you've got a female head writer versus someone that's probably not a woman.
Yeah.
It's just you don't really get it. You don't really get it. All right, next up, Falcon Winter Soldier.
I quite liked it.
I'm putting that in banger.
Yeah. Everybody had a lot of thoughts about that show. I feel like it gets like a little bit like forgotten. Probably also because like we haven't heard from those characters
and
since
none of them.
Then.
Literally none of them.
But
except for Allegra, she's shown up.
There was a lot of discussion about that show when it was on.
Yeah, about like, when Bradley showed up.
There was a lot to say.
The racial components. I think that's just an MCU problem in general. They kind of muffed the ending a bit.
Yeah, that's true for all the shows. I'm just not going to say it every time.
He worked on Empire.
So he's a black man.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And then we got the iconic scene with the shield. Which was, I'm sorry, I kind of felt like that was one of those moments where we were talking about that because it was like, you did that to Chris Evans' shield? Like the audacity. That was so disrespectful. And it's just like the purity of Steve Rogers felt desecrated in that moment, you know? And then the fight scene that we got the following episode, that was Winter Soldier level choreography. And I think people forget about that fight scene a little bit. But it was brutal.
Oh, that's the one with the Dora Milaje?
Oh, I'm not even talking I'm talking about when they were in that safe house.
Just when she did the thing to his arm? Okay.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Oh man.
I'm gonna watch that fight scene right after that. But okay, banger. All right, next one, Loki. Come on.
Another banger.
Banger. So right now, they're actually not doing as bad as we thought they were.
No.
All right. What if? I think that was a banger.
Absolutely phenomenal.
Loved it. Hawkeye. I thought it was fun.
Personally, I might put that in banger. I really liked Hawkeye.
Okay.
Because I thought that show, the chemistry. Okay, first of all, I thought it was the best at succeeding at what it was trying to be.
Yes.
From start to finish.
That's fair. That's a good point.
It was trying to be fun duo.
Mm-hmm.
Fun duo.
Christmas vibes.
Yeah. And it did that phenomenally, perfectly. I had no notes. And Haley Steinfeld was great, as she always is. And we should be seeing more of her as well.
And this, I think, is the only, obviously, because he was an Avenger, it's the only thing we've really gotten where we've, took time and sat with the trauma of what happened with Thanos. Mm-hmm. We got that with Hawkeye, not just emotionally, physically. Like, he's losing his hearing. His body's all bruised up. He's walking with a limp. Like, all of that, he's using the bathroom and he sees a thing where it says, like, Thanos was right, written on the bathroom stall. And he's like, bruh, I fought to save y'all lives. I lost my friends, my best friend, and y'all have the nerve. Like, that hits. You know what I mean?
And also, the entire premise is also based on the whole thing that he did between Infinity War and Endgame.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's all based on, like, his weird...
the Ronin stuff.
Yeah, that's what the name was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is, like, consequences of his actions.
Mm-hmm. All right. Moon Knight.
I thought it was good.
I'd put a banger. Oscar Isaac.
Okay, yeah. Okay, see, yes, Oscar Isaac.
I'm putting that banger. I loved Moonlight, bro. Moon Knight.
Man, the last episode is really killing it.
All right, that's fair. But the second to last episode, to me, was it second to last or the one before that?
I don't know. That was the flashback.
Yeah.
Very good.
That one, I don't know. Maybe I'll put it in fun. Maybe I'll put that in fun, I think.
Oscar Isaac's performance was top notch.
Yeah.
I don't know if the story itself or the writing itself was always.
I think they needed more episodes.
Yeah.
Right? Because I think, yeah.
I just really think that Marvel needs to find another way to end their shows, I guess.
The final battle thing,
man,
it doesn't always have to be there.
To do it every time.
No. Remember in WandaVision, the most interesting part in that finale were the two visions arguing with each other.
Yeah.
That I thought was like, give me more of that stuff. That felt creative. That felt new. It felt refreshing.
It's also like, here's the thing. If you're not going to put the amount of effort into it as you put in the big fight scenes in your movies, don't do it.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
No, I agree.
We can tell the difference.
I agree. All right, next one, Miss Marvel.
Fun.
I'll put that in fun.
Definitely fun.
If you did enjoy it,
she is just great.
Yeah, I mean, come on, bro.
She's just great.
Even in the Marvels, she's the best thing in that thing.
I believe it.
Hands down. She-Hulk, attorney at law. No, I was disappointed.
Yeah,
but not for the reasons that all you incels were talking about. There's other reasons.
Yeah, no. I mean, I've said it plenty of times to you. I really think it should have been a Monster of the Week court drama. For like court comedy drama.
Like a real court comedy drama.
Yeah,
not
I think
what they did with this. Yeah.
No, yeah, I think it should have been like kind of like Law and Order type vibes, but like funny.
Like parody of it a little bit.
Yeah, what's gonna be the funny little like superhero court case today?
Because when they were in the court, it
was funny. Yeah, like that kind of stuff was funny. Also, I also feel like you could have done a lot of fleshing things out. Like you can explain a lot about the world.
Yeah.
That we're in now doing stuff like that, because frankly I have a lot of questions actually after that show, because up until this point in the Marvel universe, it's kind of seemed like a very small group of people have superpowers. Like here, like the select few that we are following.
Yeah.
And then in She-Hulk, it was like all of these people, and it was like, first of all, if we do not have mutants right now, how are all these people? Because all the people who we know of who have superpowers, something happened.
Like circumstance.
And it's actually not even that many people who have superpowers, because some of the people are just like, Thor is a god, Iron Man has no powers, Hawkeye has no powers. Like, I mean, Captain America kinda, but he's just super strong, like the super serum. Black Panther just really strong because of the, like, superpowers are up until this point pretty rare, and then suddenly it was like mad people with superpowers. It's like, what? How?
Yeah.
Like, explain yourself.
I'd agree. I think what was also disappointing, I loved that we got Daredevil. I thought that they actually presented him well and did a really good job at balancing the tone when he was there. But they were hinting at him for a while, and it felt like a bit of like a bait and switch thing, where it's like, she wasn't a big enough name, but Matt Murdock is a big name. And so we're going to have people tune in waiting to see if he'll show up in that episode. Now, part of that is, and she touches on that, this is my show, which is, you're right. We should want to be watching this for you, not for Matt Murdock, which is fair. I think they could have done it a little bit better without it felt like sneaky. Last thing, I want to revisit phase 1 through 3, because I do think there's been a little bit of some revisionist history about, like, people make it seem like it was like all perfect. 1, that's not the case. 2, they actually did not have things all fleshed out. A lot of it was luck. A lot of it was just like circumstance. Like the Infinity Stone backstory, James Gunn just kind of threw that in there. That wasn't something that they were like planning out way back from like the first Iron Man film. No. So that idea, we need to dispel this notion
That's crazy.
of like how perfect Marvel was. But we're going to revisit some of that. All right. So the first one, Iron Man. I'm saying that's a banger.
I know it's a banger for most people, but for me, it's just fun.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it was an underdog film. No one expected it to be good.
Right.
The CGI is incredible in comparison to some of the other things we've gotten in Marvel. And I thought Robert Downey Jr., he was great in it. He
did a good job.
Yeah. All right. Incredible Hulk.
I've never seen it.
It's bad. We can move on to the next
Which one? This is the Edward Norton one. Isn't there another Hulk with a different?
Yes. That one was also bad.
Okay.
There has been no great Incredible Hulk film. And anyone who tells you that is lying. All right. Iron Man 2. I was disappointed.
I think I was I don't remember.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I don't think it's
the one with Mickey
good.
Rourke. This dude was also the antagonist.
Oh, yeah. No,
Yeah. See, just forgettable.
Memorable.
So I'm going to say disappointed.
Disappointed, yeah.
Yeah. Thor.
Fun.
It's fun. Captain America First Avenger.
It's just fun.
It's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously then, Avengers.
I would
Banger.
say banger.
That's the difference. We were able to see them all come together a lot sooner than we've gotten so far in phase 4 and 5, which I think has kind of hurt because...
Well, there's too many of them.
But you could still choose a few, though.
That's what I've been saying. That they should have. I know that the loss of Chadwick
that did hurt it a lot.
Impacted this. And also, if they had a plan to do this, something like that, like it was going to be Chadwick and like 2, 3, 4. What were the other 2, 3, 4, and why didn't we keep going?
I think a lot of messiness happened after Endgame. We lost Chadwick. The Sony deal, I think, scared Marvel a little bit. Mm-hmm. I think they were banking on with Doctor Strange, but like the movie, it's just too quirky, the magic stuff. And that was something that I also noticed a little bit in Loki. It's hard to always establish rules with magic. Because sometimes it can feel like, oh, they're allowed to do this, but they're not allowed to do this. All right. Unless you're like explicitly stating the rule. Like I actually appreciate that with JJK. The narrator makes it very clear of like, they say it fast, but like,
these are the rules.
Yeah.
Well, the thing that also makes it hard in the MCU is that there's all different types of magic with all these different sources.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, they have these rules, but then these people have a different set of rules.
Mm-hmm. All right, next one, Iron Man 3. It was fine. It was fun.
I feel like I really liked that movie for some reason.
It was good.
But I think it's probably still just a fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thor: Dark World.
I think it's a disappointment.
And that movie is dookie juice. I'm sorry.
The thing that's hard
mad.
is that sometimes even with the disappointment movies, I still had fun.
Yeah, I always have fun in all of the movies.
Yeah.
You know, obviously Winter Soldier, that's a banger.
Banger.
It's always up there in the S tier. The first Guardians of the Galaxy, banger. Age of Ultron, it was fun.
Yeah, fun.
Yeah, I think it's the weakest, in my opinion, out of the Avengers films.
Yes.
Personally,
Yeah, I would agree.
I'm saying weakest in terms of just they're all great. This is just comes at the end.
Yeah,
opinion. All right, Ant-Man.
that's fun.
It's fun, right? Then we've got Civil War, banger. Doctor Strange,
fun.
Guardians of the Galaxy 2,
Fun.
I'd say fun.
Yeah.
Thor Ragnarok,
Banger. You know how many times I watched that movie?
I know. Black Panther, banger. Infinity War, banger. Captain Marvel,
fun.
and then obviously Endgame, another banger.
Banger.
So I think what's really catching people here
Is that we had so many bangers at the end.
right?
But most of the first 3 phases were fun.
Right. Once we got to really around Civil War, in terms of the consistency of bangers, that's probably when things really start to come to me. So it's really phase 3 where things are like, oh, this is really good quality.
Yeah.
But prior to that, it had some ups and downs very similar to what we got with phase 4.
Yeah. I think the difference too, though, is like, I think our expectation of superhero movies has changed. I think in the early 2000s and mid 2000s, kind of like nobody took them that seriously.
Yeah.
So you were only expecting it to be fun. So like your expectations were not as high. Like you're going in expecting like a standard action film. Like it's going to be a good time. There's going to be like some good, fun action sequences. It's not going to be anything mind blowing. Like that was the expectation.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't until later on when, I mean, obviously you had The Dark Knight, and then with Marvel, and you start to see them pull out like all these like films that are like, oh no, actually like this is like, I'm having a great time, that they sort of like raise the bar for themselves. And then like immediately afterwards, it's like, we're not quite meeting that.
Well, we'll see. Next thing we get, I believe, is Echo in January. So we'll see how that one tracks.
No.
All right, y'all. Thank you all again, and we will see you all next time.